As promised in class, I want to provide you a tutorial on a few tips and tricks, a few neat tools that can make for an interesting portion of your your sports edit. Now, I say that as an interesting portion. I really do not intend for you to apply some of these things too often. If you do too much of it, it's much like a PowerPoint or a presentation with too many transitions or too many animations, where it just really is a pain to watch and or to navigate through that project. So first thing I want to show you is how to trim your clips to fit together. Now, because we placed our audio in the main storyline, the dark gray portion of your project window, your clips are not going to sit right up against each other. So this is a navigation problem that often occurs. So this clip in the very beginning here, walking down the fairway to an opening scene for our sports edit, is not this exact length. It probably came in a little bit longer or shorter. And the issue that you'll see happens here is if the clips are over top of each other, secondary clips attached to the main storyline are too long or too short, they're going to overlap a little bit. So one of the tips that I'm going to recommend you get comfortable using, there are two little arrows above the comma and the period keys on your keyboard, and that's a move or a trim function that you should get comfortable using. So selecting the end of this clip, I know this clip is too long, and where I want the next clip to start is forcing this clip above it. So what I can do is, one frame at a time, I can remove by hitting the comma key, the left facing arrow. I can remove one frame at a time and see a little bit of movement here until, hit one more. And once I get myself off of the edge, you're now frame to frame. There's no gap here. There's no black space between my clips. And now they'll drop down into consecutively in my storyline. If I take a space or two back and I play this, you need to be careful you don't see a black flicker, as that just flicked black because there is actually 2 frames of blackness between the 2 clips. If you're catching that, you should be hitting, in this case, the period key to extend that clip 2 frames. I'll go back one. There we go. 2 frames. So that way I have a nice seamless transition between those 2 clips. So I've done this with several edits or several of my favorited clips across the top of my audio, my main storyline. An additional tool that I'll share with you is shown in, these last couple clips. And the first time I show it is right here under clip C3. I get this slow motion effect. And what I actually have here is a continuous clip that gets slowed down on the downstroke of this golf shot. So what I've done here is I've bladed this clip. I'll zoom in a little bit so we can see it better. C0003 got cut in the middle here. It's bladed in half. And then this second half is all slow motion. And I'll show you how that happens. So with this as one continuous clip, there's 2 ways to blade your clip and cut it into a smaller piece so you can apply an effect. If you hit this arrow key, there are a bunch of other possible tools, and one of which is the B tool. If you hit the letter B on your keyboard, it will also load it. So letter B, and I get this red razor blade that allows me to click and to separate this into 2 clips. I'm going to cut one over here and then show you how it broke it into an additional clip. It's still continuous content, but there's an additional clip being made. So I'm going to Command Z that because I don't need that cut again. If I hit the A, it'll take me back to the arrow tool. So A and B are for my arrow and blade tools. And so this is playing normally until I get to the second clip. Once I get here, I decided I wanted to slow motion this clip. And so what I'm able to do is this item right here next to the magic wand little tool here, it's a retiming editor. So if I click on this, I can come, do I want to slow it down? Do I want to speed it up? Do I want it to play normal? I can also hold, I can do a few things with this that can make for an interesting clip. You can also play the clip in reverse. You can do an instant replay, which is an application of a couple of these retiming tools. There's a bunch of different neat little tools built inside this drop-down option. In my case, I hit slow and I hit 25% because I shot this at a higher frame rate, and it gives me a really nice slow motion clip. But slow motion is one of your options. If you're shooting this with standard video that you shot at 30 frames per second, which is what our camcorders use, the video is going to start falling apart. You're going to start getting a jittery feel to your video, and you just got to be aware that you don't want to go too far. So if I hit retime 25%, this is already slowed down to 25%, and so the bar shows without any retiming that this is playing at 25%. Drop down arrow here allows me to get into some additional customizations. I can also drag the end of this clip left or right and slow it down more or less. In this case, less. It's going closer to 100%. And I can slow it down even further by dragging the end of that bar. The bar will change colors to blue and green depending on the duration of it. So if it's green, it's the normal 100%. If it's faster, it's blue. If it's slow motion, it's the other direction, and it's orange. So I don't really need to change that edit. I already like the way it was at 25%. But I wanted to show you how to get to that tool. And the slow motion and the retiming editor allows you to do all of that changing of the speed at which your clip is playing. So I have this clip cut down using the blade tool, and then I use the retiming editor to slow the second half to get a neat looking slow motion shot. Final tool I wish to show you is the trim tool. Now the trim tool doesn't necessarily speak to, or its name doesn't describe it completely. If you grab, actually it's not going to work this way in a connected clip, but if I come over here and take a look at the next shot, I have contact of this ball, and it's actually sitting right between my beat markers, which I'm not particularly excited about. It makes for a soft edit. So my action should line up with my beats, as should the end of my clips line up with one of my beat markers. Okay, I get this golf stroke to take place, but it's really not on a beat, and it just feels a little bit soft. One thing that can tighten this edit up is to use the trim tool and grab that clip. And what I'm doing is I'm not changing the duration, the length of my clip. I'm just doing this fine tuning, this fine edit of lining up the golf impact with one of these beat markers. And so what I can see here is the audio is now lined up with a beat marker, so the audio takes place when the golf ball is being hit. And it'll just be a little bit tighter edit for a little more professional finish. The other part that's soft in this clip is the end here, this transition. I could probably shorten this clip a little bit, so I'm going to grab the end of that clip and just put it right onto a beat marker. And I can also pull the beginning, whoops. I can also pull the beginning of this clip left and right, but in this case I need to use the arrow tool to stretch it out so that way it touches. Again, I don't want a black space in between the two. If these clips transition on a beat marker, which actually this is just a slow motion, so it doesn't need to be hitting the beat marker. The content's not changing. Content's changing in this next clip, and it's definitely soft because it hits at a bad point. I should again try to go through here and retime, stretch out one clip and shorten the other a little bit to ensure that this thing is hitting right on the beat. And there we go. What happens here? Again, we get an additional slow motion on that shot, but it just cut off a little bit. You're talking less than a second off the very beginning of that clip. So if I play through this section here with the slow motion starting it, a little bit harder edit on this contact, a little more to the beat, and another slow motion took place in C10. You can see that with the bladed action. I have one more here at the end of C11. Another slow motion with the grass flying. So retiming, which is your speeding up and slowing down of a clip, using your trim tool to slide your action left and right so that the action lines up with a nice beat or an audio heartbeat. And then making sure that your clips are trimmed to the proper length to ensure that there's no black flicker and that these clips are one after another the entire way through the project. A lot of extra stuff to add. You really just need to make sure this thing plays smoothly, the video plays smoothly, and the amount of audio you leave in your original clips is up to you. In my case, I could probably duck this down except for a couple spots where the ball's being hit. It's kind of nice to be able to hear that sync up with the music. So you can play games with what needs to be heard. In this clip, I just got a whole bunch of air noise because it's just someone walking around. I'll put my clip back here. It's just the address of a ball out on the golf course coming up to the tee box. And I'm from a mile away. I'm not going to hear anything, so I'll duck the audio completely out and just listen to the music in this case, which will feel a lot cleaner than having air noise going on in the background. Same thing on this previous clip, the player walking. So audio considerations as well. And the first time I hear anything is with that driver hitting the ball. So some of those options that you can consider, think about it and try and find something interesting to highlight.